I think the last time we saw Dr. Christine Pickup in studio was 7 or 8 months ago, maybe longer. Are you
About that. It was the beginning of the year.
Oh, you moved your microphone down a little
There
bit.
we go.
So,
Is
yeah.
that better?
Yeah, that'll be a little bit better.
Great.
Of course, from Mount Harrison Audiology in Rupert. And I think you've been with us on the air now for at least 2 years, right?
Yes, we have.
Maybe even longer.
It might be 3. It might be 3.
I've been doing this so long now. The other day it struck me it was nearly 4 at this radio station. And I'd like to say I don't feel a day older. But and I thought I was losing my hearing in my right ear a couple of weeks ago.
Did you?
When I had the headset on. It turned out it was the headset.
Well, that's a relief.
But on the other hand, I had a doctor tell me one time I have a lazy eye on the right side of my head. And I had some surgery done one time on my right side of my stomach. But he was telling me, he said, a lot of these things can all be related to when you were young and you get older. So he said, it's possible right side hearing could also be part of this and be impacted. And I'm going to be 56 in about 8 weeks. There's a certain time of life where you start experiencing these things in larger numbers. It's not to say younger people don't, because we've addressed that before. It sometimes impacts.
Hearing loss can hit at any age, at any stage.
And so, lots of young people deal with this on a somewhat regular basis. And they're likely your patients. Yes,
they are. Well, we hope they are. Definitely. But we are recommending that everybody have a baseline hearing evaluation done by the time they're 50. I heard one doctor call it, you need to get your ears and your rears checked when you hit that age 50. That's when you get a colonoscopy. That's when we should have a baseline hearing test done, so that we have that established. Our hearing is so tied to how our body works. Our blood supply really affects how our hearing is working. So if you have any cardiovascular issues, if you have high blood sugar, if you have high blood pressure, those things can change your hearing. And if we have a baseline, then we actually have a way to judge, okay, are these other things affecting, or is your hearing getting changed because you have these other things happening? And so it's really important to have a baseline.
And if you have like a constriction, I think, in your circulation near your ears, that would do it.
Absolutely, yeah. Anything that changes the blood supply to, say, your kidneys, or you have high blood pressure, those types of things will actually cause hearing loss.
Now, we've had multiple generations that have grown up listening to loud music, for instance, and I had a friend in high school, we're going back 40 years ago, and he would drive around in a big old Pontiac, and you could hear him coming from, blocks away because of the music. I'm sure that's good for business, but it's not necessarily positive in the long run for the public or the population.
Absolutely not. Well, I actually saw a study done earlier this year where they do models in mice, because mice, we can age really quickly and see what happened, but they exposed the mice to the equivalent of one rock concert. Then they aged them out, dissected them, and what they found is that the inner ear structures were okay, but all the nerves were damaged. So, and how that would translate to a human is that you would pass a pure tone hearing test, but you can't hear in background noise. It actually, half the nerve bundle was gone.
Wow.
Yeah, it was actually very shocking, knowing that these type of things happen, but just one exposure could cause that much damage, and it happens. It's not always immediately apparent. When you're exposed to noise, it may be 5-10 years down the road before you start suffering some of the consequences of that noise exposure.
I see people when I go to the racetrack, they'll have the kids, make sure they put the big ear protectors over the kids' heads.
Yes.
But I've actually discovered it's noisier at Albertson Stadium than it is at the racetrack. And that was a shocker to me, and I couldn't believe how loud it gets there. You would think between BYU and BSU, when I went to see the game there a couple of years ago, that they'd be a more mild crowd. They're not. And
no.
Where I was sitting, and I think it's just the acoustics, 38,000 screaming people is obviously in. If you were exposed to something like that on a regular basis, working in a factory, for instance, you're going to have some hearing loss in just a few years, I would imagine.
Absolutely, yes. Oh, and the interesting thing about being in a stadium is all that sound is being directed to the center. We're sitting in a big circle, basically, versus being at the racetrack where you've got a lot of open space, so the sound doesn't get reflected back as much. So being in a stadium is a little bit more dangerous.
I do want to point out, if people would like to have an opportunity to speak to Dr. Pickup, telephone number is 208-736-0300. That's 208-736-0300. Any questions you have this morning about hearing health, the doctor is the person to talk to. We're 11 minutes after 9 o'clock at 66, and Bill Colley with you as well on Magic Valley this morning. Uh, for most of us, when we do get to that particular age, what will happen is I think our GP, the family practitioner, will likely do a slight testing with us, and then if the GP, he or she says you have an issue, that's when you get the referral in that particular situation.
Ideally, yes, but not every GP thinks about hearing. Unfortunately, that's kind of a big part of why we are being so aggressive about getting our message out, because a lot of doctors are not aware of how important their patient's hearing is to their overall health. And so not every doctor screens hearing. There are some that are proactive, and that's something that we're doing as a practice. We're, reaching out to the physicians in our area. We let them know what we can do and how we can help. But be proactive as a patient. You should be asking, should I be concerned about my hearing? And there's actually a whole list of things that you can talk to your doctor about. If you're noticing that you hear fine and quiet, but if you get in any kind of competing noise, you have issues understanding what people are saying, that's a red flag. If you notice that women's and children's voices are harder to understand than men's voices, that's a red flag. So there's certain things that you can just kind of notice on your own. Don't put it off. I think that's the biggest takeaway is be proactive. The sooner we treat hearing loss, the better the long-term results are.
Now, in the last 20 years, we've seen such a revolution in devices and treatment. I was listening to Rush Limbaugh one day, and he was explaining to people. I mean, I've completely forgotten that he has the cochlear implants, but he was explaining to people how he hears them when they call the show, or how he even hears other sounds. And it's remarkable that he can sort all of this out, because it would have been a career ender a decade earlier for him.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, hearing technology has just, even in the last 3 years, there have been some huge transitions into what a modern device can do. We're kind of getting away from the term hearing aid, because people think hearing aids, they think an amplifier. Modern devices, we've been using the term neurotechnology. They're actually designed to help the brain function better. It's not just a simple amplifier. The sounds are manipulated in a very specific way to help each person's individual needs. They help the brain do what it does best, to be able to orient to sound, to be able to sort noise from speech that you want to hear, and be able to localize where things are coming from. So it's not just a simple amplifier, it's actually a very sophisticated medical device.
There are a lot of people out there afraid of being tested. I think of my mother when she was alive. We could all tell that she was having some difficulty, but she would just tell us, that we were mumbling. A lot of people are a little intimidated by all of this. What would happen if they come to your office and you maybe walk them through it? I mean, this is not a torture chamber.
Oh,
it's
no.
It's a doctor's office.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate the opportunity to explain. Nothing that we do hurts. There's no shots. There's no. I always say it's way better than going to the dentist.
A little bit easier than the radio.
Actually, it probably is. So when you come to our office, you'll be greeted by our receptionist. We have you fill out some paperwork just like at any other doctor's office. And then we come back and we talk about your needs and your concerns and what the problems have been. I really like to go in depth with patients so they understand kind of where I'm coming from, and I understand what their needs are. When we do the actual evaluation, it's not just a tone test, raise your hand. We do a tone test to kind of establish the degree of loss, but what's more important to me is how the brain and the ear are working together. So there are very specific tests that we do that are based on language. So we play different kinds of words and have you repeat back the words. Nothing scary, nothing really hard, but we do dig into, how is the brain and the ear working together? How's memory tying into that? Because that is a big issue. We see people living longer and longer and longer, and we want to keep them as healthy as possible. The Lancet, what do you call it? The Lancet stuff sorry, I can't think of the word, but in Europe this last year, they came out with very specific recommendations in helping prevent dementia. And the number one modifiable risk factor was hearing loss. So that's the number one thing that you can actually do something about that will help reduce your risk of dementia.
In other words, it keeps you in contact with other people.
Absolutely. Well, and not just that, and that's a critical part, that keeping that social contact is really, really important. But the other part is hearing loss actually changes how your brain functions. And so if we can restore the hearing through treatment, then the brain function is also restored and clarified as well.
And now you mentioned you're dealing with mainly probably people who are an older population, but people who have children, and if they're concerned about their children's hearing health, how does it work? Is it a similar type of visit when they
Depends on
come
the
in?
age. Yep, we can take care of any age now. Our office is proud to be able to offer what's called auditory brainstem response testing, and that is for it's a modified EEG for itty bitty babies that can't raise their hand and say, "I heard that sound." Um, so we have ABR. Then, as the children get older, say 6 months and older, we can tuck them in the booth, and there are specific tests that we do with little babies, toddlers, and then as they get into the preschool age, then we can teach them better and better how to do more of a traditional test.
Sometimes when you're young, you can find things that I would assume, though, also can be reversible.
Sometimes, yes, if it's due to, say, a middle ear infection or fluid in the middle ear, that is hearing loss that can be ameliorated with medical treatment. And we work very closely with local physicians to, if someone needs medical intervention that way, we get them right there where they need to go.
Still, we're a ways away from the $6 million man and bionic ears and the like, right?
Thank heavens, yes. Yeah, and that's one thing that I think a lot of people are worried about is they automatically assume that treatment is expensive. And it doesn't have to be. Not everybody who walks into our office walks out with a pair of devices or an expensive treatment plan. There's lots of things that we can do. Sometimes the hearing loss is not progressed to the point where they need devices, but there's therapy that they can do online at home that kind of helps their brain and ear stay connected.
Wanted to point out, since people are tuning in this morning and listening, I've mentioned it a lot on air, but if they wanted to get to your office, and you mentioned to me off air, people are coming from as far away as Rogerson, but we would think it's fairly simple to find anything in Rupert, but trust me, I've visited there, and it's not always quite as simple as it sounds if you don't know the area.
Right.
So if people are coming from, let's say, this direction from Twin Falls, how does this work?
The easiest way to find our office is to find the Minidoka Memorial Hospital. So almost everybody knows where that is.
Big building.
Big building. Our office is located just behind the hospital across from the ER entrance. So you just find the ER, look across the parking lot, and we're the second office on the left. So we're actually quite easy to find. The hospital is one of the best in our area, and we're really happy to be affiliated with them.
I was going to say, today we have built these medical complexes where we have a lot of doctors who sort of ring the area because people can do, I guess you call it one-stop shopping when they can get a lot of different things done all at once.
Yes, and that's kind of what we've been able to create there. So we're not owned by the hospital. We are an independent, privately owned practice, but we work very closely both with Minidoka Memorial Hospital and also with St. Luke's here in Twin Falls. They have a great ENT clinic there that we work closely with, and their ENTs actually travel out to Rupert once a week. And so we have a great relationship with them.
I guess they like to drive through the construction just as well as everybody else.
Well, they see a need, and it's worth it. We're worth the drive.
I was going to say, if you the need is the key. If you have it, people will go a long distance. We got to take a short break. We've got more coming up with Dr. Christine Pickup from Mount Harrison Audiology. It's almost 20 after 9, and we're now up to 66 on Magic Valley this morning with Bill Colley on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com. It's 9:22, and we've got a few more minutes with Dr. Christine Pickup from Mount Harrison Audiology on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com. And we'll expand on this because we're going to be doing this now on a monthly basis. We do want to point out, too, as well, if you've got a question or comment on hearing health, 208-736-0300, 208-736-0300. Bill Colley with you as well on Magic Valley this morning. You mentioned earlier cost.
Yes.
A lot of people, I think, avoid getting this done because there's a belief, I think many people have, this is going to cost them thousands and thousands of dollars.
Right, and it doesn't necessarily have to. And one thing to keep in mind is, we offer affordable treatment plans and financing options. So we work really hard to make things affordable. If you really don't have any money, we don't ever want to take food off the table. We work with special programs for people who really are needing financial assistance. We work with Wells Fargo. They have a great financing program. We even do in-office financing depending on what things you want to do, but we want to make sure that you're getting your hearing taken care of because it takes care of your brain health as well.
I had a friend I used to work with, and her brothers were dentists. And I said, "Gee, could they work with me on a payment plan?" And I think she was just being a smart aleck, but she said, "No, I've already sent too many friends of mine with that idea out to see them." But that is true, and most people, if they're coming in with insurance,
hmm
obviously uh, that's going to help too. I mean,
It
it's not going to
does.
be an overly burdensome.
No, no. And that's one reason why we don't do like the free hearing test promotion, because we participate with Medicare. And if you work with Medicare, you can't do something for free that you could charge Medicare for. So we're very conscious about that. We work with most major insurances, and which is a job in and of itself,
Right.
but it's something that we're willing to do because we want to reach as many people as we can.
With your area too, over in that whole Minnecasia region booming
hmm
economically, and new businesses. A lot more people are coming in with new insurance plans. And
Yes.
you say it's almost a full-time job for someone to keep track of all of that. But a lot of new people have moved here. A lot of people are working in jobs here,
hmm
and that's a customer base. They should know that if they've got a question about this, all they got to do is call you, and you can answer those questions about what would be available or what you
Absolutely.
work with.
Yeah, we before you even come in for your appointment, we have someone who will verify your benefits before you show up, so that you know exactly what's covered. We know exactly where you're at, so that you have that assurance that you're making good decisions.
Now, what would be for someone out there who's, at least for the moment, they've got good hearing, if they'd like to maintain that? What is your best advice for them?
Hearing protection. So anytime you're somewhere, or you're mowing the lawn, or you're at a concert, just be smart. We highly recommend that you just carry some hearing protection with you in your purse. Our office even has some really nice, they're not custom, but they are customizable, um, very flat response plugs. Sometimes people want to go to a concert and they don't like how the music sounds with earplugs. These are designed to give a very flat response, so the music still sounds fabulous. It's just turned down to a safe level. It's like taking the volume control and turning everything down.
I never thought about wearing hearing protection with mowing the grass until I heard that story about Rand Paul with his neighbor, and he had the spat. The reason
Yes,
Paul didn't hear him or know that he was coming is Paul had on hearing protection.
right,
But then again, he is Dr. Paul,
right.
so he probably would be aware that that's a good idea.
He is actually one of the sponsors. There's a bill in Congress right now to change the Medicare rules so that people can come see an audiologist without having to get a referral for their doctor. Right now, you have to get a referral first. That's the Medicare rule. Um, but there's actually a law, right, or a bill in Congress, and Rand Paul's one of the sponsors, trying to change that so that people have more access to audiologists.
No, you see, I just thought of something here. We need more medical professionals instead of lawyers in government.
Yes.
So when you're running for state legislature, we'll keep that in mind, right?
Okay. I don't know if I want to do that. I've got my hands full right now, just taking care of my family and my
It is
practice.
a growing business, though.
It is. We've brought on a second provider. Last time we were here, I brought Dr. Mitchell with me, and she's wonderful. She's very thorough and careful. She's darling with kids. She's just a great asset to our business.
I was going to say, are there plans as you grow to maybe expand centers and move out from?
Possibly, well, the hospital itself right now is considering doing some remodeling, and they want us to be there and be a part of things. And so the idea
I
right
know
now
you're
is,
heavily involved in that community.
yes, we are, and we're not going anywhere. We will always have an office in Rupert. But the idea right now is to actually expand so that we can continue to bring on more providers. We just want to be if you want to have your hearing taken care of in the best manner possible, you come see us, and we'll take amazingly good care of you.
I was going to say anybody of course, for me, it's critical to hear things because of what I do for a living. But then it's really critical for everybody, and sometimes we're
Precisely.
narrow-minded on that.
Right. No, hearing is so important to everything we do. We really do take it for granted. There's no eyelid, or we have eyelids, but there's no earlids. We are always listening to our environment, even when we're sleeping. And so it's something that is so much a part of us, we take it for granted. We don't even realize how much we depend on what the ear is bringing to our brain.
I was going to say we've got about a minute left. Anything that I didn't say today that you wanted to address?
I actually wanted to let everybody know I've written a new book. It's a short booklet. It's called Communication Tips for Happier Relationships. And it is a book with very concrete things that you can do if you have a loved one who has hearing loss, is not quite ready to take the leap to come to our office yet. These are things, very concrete things you can do to facilitate communication with someone who has hearing loss. And so it talks about very specific tips. It gives a good overview about why our hearing is important.
Hold on to that thought for a minute.
Sure.
Can you stick around for a few more minutes? Because
Yeah.
we've got a caller. Comment or question. We've got about 20 seconds before the break, and the doctor will try to answer it on the other side.
What's the difference between the hearing aid centers and the services you provide? Thank you.
What we'll do is we'll take a break. If you can stick around for another 5 minutes.
Absolutely.
Following Todd Starnes, we'll get to that. That caller was trying to reach you the last time you were here and didn't get a chance to do it.
Oh, good.
So I'm glad he chimed in. It's 9:30. We've got more with Dr. Christine Pickup on the way. It's 66 on Magic Valley this morning on News Radio 1310, KLIX, and newsradio1310.com. Joining us in the studio, Dr. Christine Pickup from Mount Harrison Audiology in Rupert. It's 9:34. We're at 67. 68. We just jumped a degree on Magic Valley this morning with Bill Colley as well on News Radio 1310, KLIX, and newsradio1310.com. So caller had a very interesting question. A lot of that comes, I think, from, if you're watching late night TV, you see all these hearing center ads.
Yes.
So what's he talking about?
So there are a lot of different choices in terms of where you could go to get your hearing loss treated. And he wanted to know what the difference was between what we do versus the others. And so the first thing is, we are not a retail establishment. We are a medical office. We pursue the medical model of treating hearing loss. And so we're not just out there to sell you a widget. You'll notice I never, ever advertise a specific hearing aid. We are service providers. We are medical providers. We do a medical hearing evaluation. And so that's our focus. We're not a retail store. You don't go and buy your let's say your knee support from Walmart. If you really need something, you go to your orthopedist. If you have hearing loss, don't go to a retail store. Come see us. We are the hearing authorities in our area, and this is what we do every day.
Yeah, thinking about that, because of my work schedule, even on weekends, I'm up early, and while I'm waiting for the laundry to dry, I'll turn on the television. And that's when I see a lot of these ads in the morning for these hearing devices.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently most of them are just amplifiers. They're not much else.
It's true. I'm not going to go into brands, but there are a lot of, anything that you can buy mail order really isn't a true hearing aid, or what we offer is the neurotechnology. It's not just a simple amplifier. We want to treat the medical aspects of your hearing loss, and that's the big difference.
My grandmother told me a story about one of her brothers bought glasses via mail. This is probably 75, 80 years ago, but he bought glasses via mail one time. And I guess people used to do a lot more of that.
Mm-hmm.
And then he was told he had a crooked eye, so he put the glasses on his head and tried to wear them somewhat askew. And she finally said, "What are you doing?" But that was because there was no doctor that told him, "Look, they've already been aligned and measured for you." It's the same type of thing.
Well, it's even more important. When we fit hearing devices, we actually do special measurements in your ear. We have a special device called a real ear microphone. And so we tuck the hearing aid in the ear with this device, and we actually can measure what is happening. And then I adjust the device so that it's appropriate specifically for that patient. And you can't do that over the internet. You can't do that over the mail. You have to have a warm body in the chair. You need to have that personal interaction to be able to actually have it fit for that prescription.
Oh, I'd be worried that something I bought through the mail could ultimately do me more harm than good.
And that is a real concern, because if a hearing aid isn't set correctly, it can actually cause hearing loss. If you have Great Aunt Martha's hearing aids and she had a profound hearing loss, and you have a mild one and you try to wear them, you will actually cause more damage to your hearing.
And we've got to remind people, I think the first time you were ever here talking about hearing damage, the subject came up about Q-tips.
Oh, yeah.
You're not a fan of Q-tips.
I'm not. And in fact, I saw another person last week that had been really aggressive with the Q-tip and had scabs all along the ear canal. The danger with a Q-tip is twofold. One, you have a sharp stick. It has cotton on the end, but it's a sharp stick. And so if something happens, maybe your cat rubs against your legs and you get spooked, or somebody scares you from behind, you can literally shove that thing right through the eardrum and cause permanent damage. The lesser known issue is that even using a Q-tip on a regular basis, you abrade the skin, and then as it heals, it itches, and then you go in and you scratch it again, and it's this self-fulfilling prophecy of itchy, irritated ears.
And eventually some scarring too.
Absolutely. Yep.
And that ear canal, the way it's designed, is basically designed to assist with channeling the sound. And if you scrape it up, it's going to alter what's going into the ear.
It can. It can if you get enough damage to it. Now, if you do have issues with earwax buildup in your ears, there's a safe way to have that removed. That's something that Dr. Mitchell and I are trained to do and do on a regular basis. So if you have a real concern, come in and let us help you with that. It's not expensive, but it's a lot easier to let a professional who actually has the tools and has the special lights and the cameras to see what's going on do it the right way.
And of course, a lot of people come in the summer after swimming too, and they've got the water in the ear and they've got the earache. Probably it's best to see you too in those situations.
Yeah, a lot of times it's something simple that we can help you clear up or give you some tools that you can use at home that can help keep the ear dry and clean and comfortable.
Tell you what, we've got another caller coming up another break. You may have to spend the hour with us. Caller, go ahead. You're up next.
Yeah, for years I have used Q-tips with hydrogen peroxide, and I guess I think that it's doing good because I can hear it bubbling in my ear, and then I take Q-tips and kind of clean it out. So you're saying that that's not a good idea, correct?
We've got a short break. You want to get to that after the break?
Sure. Yep, we'll be right there.
And the doctor is in a real hurry to get back to Rupert this morning, so I'm going to make her stay for another 15 minutes. It's 68 right now. You're listening to Magic Valley this morning on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com. Dr. Christine Pickup is joining us this morning from Mount Harrison Audiology in Rupert. Bill Colley with you too until 10 a.m. Caller had a comment about not just the Q-tips, but also using the Q-tips in conjunction with the peroxide. So it's really two separate issues, isn't it?
It is. And peroxide's actually a great thing to help break down wax. If you actually do have a real buildup, it's a great way to loosen that up. It'll help break the seal between the wax and the skin, and it makes it easier to remove. But the Q-tip part's the hard part. So like what I recommend at home is use a little bit of peroxide in the ear. I like to do like a 50-50 water peroxide mix, and then use a special type syringe to flush the ear. Rather than use a Q-tip, it's a much safer way to do it at home. There's no sharp objects in your ear, and it does a really great job of flushing everything out.
How long would the peroxide be in there?
No more than 5-10 minutes.
In the old days, we used to put our head then down on a heating pad, wait for it to drain. Does that work?
Well, the heat helps. It feels good. And if you're worried about, it depends on how twisty your ear canal is. Some people have a very straight shot to the eardrum, and others are very twisty. So depending on how twisty your ear is, laying down might help get the water out. But if you use the syringe with enough velocity, it comes right back out, and you're not having anything pooling.
And then, I think sometimes the device my mom used to have when she was checking turkey, but she could also draw some of the juice out. Some of the juice out. A device like that could pull some of that out too, right? But you don't want to.
I wouldn't try that. No. At our office, we actually have a little syringe system that we recommend that is safe. It doesn't shoot straight, shoots out sideways, 3 ways, and that way you don't have any danger of damaging your eardrum. You want to make sure that you don't have a hole in your eardrum, though, if you're going to flush your ears. That's a big red flag. If you think you have a hole in your eardrum, let us check it. We can tell you for sure before you start flushing those ears.
You don't want people putting anything in the ear canal.
Not unless we kind of give you the okay, no. Just because we don't know what we're working with. And the hard thing about ears is unless you have an otoscope, you can't really see what's down there, and you don't know the shape, you don't know what you're dealing with. We actually have a camera that we can turn on and tuck down your ear, and you can see exactly what your eardrum and your ear canal look like, and we can see if there's anything that we need to worry about. A lot of times people are paranoid that they have lots of wax in their ears, and they actually don't. It's just that normal amount. The ear self-cleans. The ear actually is designed to move that wax along and come out naturally.
Yeah, but when I was a kid and my mother, she would be, cleaning me up, and she used to just kind of use the washcloth for the outer ear.
And that's perfect.
But she used to say to me, she'd say, your ears are so filthy you could plant potatoes there. I can still remember that line like it was yesterday. And so obviously in the outer parts of the ear, you're going to if you're out walking in the field and it's dusty,
yeah,
you're going to pick that up.
Oh, yeah, and that's normal. And like you said, use a washcloth and wipe out the folds and stuff. The ear, the way that it's shaped, is actually designed to help catch sound. We're not as good as bats, but we actually listen to where sounds are coming from to know where we are in the environment. And so the shape of the ear is actually designed to help us localize where things are coming from. It is designed to capture especially the human voice and amplify it. There's resonances, there's spots in the ear canal that actually amplify human voices. So we're designed to hear each other. That's how the ear is made. We are made to be able to communicate with each other.
It's 9:45, and we're at 68. Dr. Christine Pickup joining us in studio on Magic Valley this morning on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com. The doctor joining us from Mount Harrison Audiology in Rupert. If you've got a question or comment, feel free to give us a call at 208. I should probably say, I always say 0 because it's actually not a letter. Some people say 208.
Right.
208-736-0300. That's 208-736-0300. And she can handle your questions in the few remaining minutes that she has with us today, because she won't be back until sometime probably in the middle of September. So we're on this subject. It seems to me that most people probably have no idea how bad they treat their ears when it comes to just where they put themselves, places they go, things they put into their ears. And you're talking probably sometimes decades of accumulation of damage that's going on.
It can be. It can be. It just depends. Everybody, different ethnicities have different consistencies of earwax. You know, people from Asia tend to have very dry, they call it the rice bran wax. Caucasians tend to have very sticky wax. So, and it also depends on what you inherited from your family. Some people make a lot of wax, some people hardly make any at all. Earwax itself is not an evil thing. It's actually designed to help protect the skin of the ear canal. If you go halfway down the eardrum, it's literally skin on bone. There's no cartilage, there's no muscle to help protect that layer. All that's there is the wax to help protect it. It's antimicrobial, it's a lubricant, it's supposed to be in there. The problem is when people make too much. You know, I remember there's a little family that used to come to our clinic, and all of the kids just made a lot of wax, and so once a year we cleaned all their ears out. And that's a genetic trait. Some people don't make much at all. And it's really not, almost never is the hearing loss caused by wax. It does happen occasionally. I had a young man who was disabled. His mother brought him in and said, all of a sudden he's not responding to me. I don't know what's going on. I looked in his ears, and he had literally had homemade earplugs in both ear canals. And as soon as we got everything cleaned out, it was like a light bulb came on. And all of a sudden he could hear us again. It was kind of a neat thing. But that's not typical.
We have a caller. Caller, you're up next. You're on the air with Dr. Christine Pickup on KLIX.
Hi, Dr. Pickup.
Hello.
Hey, I was wondering if I'm up in the mountains hunting a big old buck or something like that, do they make a hearing aid that when I shoot the gun, it will eliminate the noise of the gun?
Yes. They're specialized hunting plugs, and it's basically a modified hearing aid, but it's just for when you're out hunting. And they are designed, as soon as the gun goes off, it clamps down, protects your hearing, and then it slowly comes back up so you can still hear what's happening around you. And you can actually turn them up to have a bit super hearing, so you can actually hear the doe walking through the brush, at 50 yards, so you can hear everything really, really well, but as soon as that gun goes off, it clamps down and protects them. That's a great question.
Yeah, so it would be a regular hearing aid that I would wear normally.
Actually,
too,
no,
right?
No, this is a special device that's just for hunting.
Okay, that's what I was wondering.
Yeah, with regular hearing aids, they're not designed to have that rapid execution. And because for the most part, we don't want hearing aids shutting off. We want them open and listening. And so it's a very different setup that a regular hearing aid isn't designed to do. But these are specially modified for shooting. They're called shooter's plugs. They're electronic, so they're based on a hearing aid, but they're very specifically designed for the situation that you're describing.
He had a very good call, and I was talking to the folks who do the gun show with us on Friday mornings, and they were explaining that if you're at the range now, you can now get ear protection that will limit, it'll muffle the sound of that report from your pistol in this case, generally, but you'll be able to hear people talking off in the distance.
Same technology. So you can get them in a muff, or you can have them in a hearing aid style. They even have ones that are really tiny that fit down your ear canal. It just depends on what your needs are. But if that's something that you're interested in and you also need a regular hearing aid, that's something that we can talk about, and we can work out a treatment plan where we could help you get both if that's what you needed. Because you wouldn't want to wear a hunting plug all the time, and you wouldn't want to wear a true neurotechnology device when you're hunting.
And you referenced earlier that we hear 24/7, that even when you're asleep, obviously, that you're picking up all of those sounds.
Yes.
And that would be because, and probably when we were living out in caves and in the woods in the early days, that if you were asleep, you had to have that instantaneous response to a threat.
Yes, and it's still happening even now. We are always listening to the environment around us to know where we are. Are we standing up? Are we lying down? Is there a threat? Is there something else happening in the environment that we need to be aware of? It may not be a panther in the woods now, but it might be a car coming down the street, or an ambulance coming. We need to know. We still need to have that good awareness of what's happening, and that's one of the dangers of hearing loss, is that people lose that situational awareness.
I just know that sometimes I have literally had sounds going on, and they've been incorporated into a dream. And it takes me a moment, and all of a sudden I'll come out of the dream and realize, that I hear this noise outside, or it's the alarm clock going off, and yet it seems somehow that the brain just sometimes will pick it up and incorporate it to whatever is in that dream.
Yeah. Isn't that neat?
It's a strange feeling sometimes.
Our brain is so amazing, and that's why we need to have people be more aware of how hearing interacts with the brain. They've done studies. They've actually shown that the brain shrinks, literally shrinks, if there's untreated hearing loss, because there's areas that are not getting stimulation and the brain rewires itself. So that we don't want that to happen. We want people to be as healthy and as connected as we can, and treating hearing loss does that. It prevents that brain shrinkage. It prevents all those issues that we are seeing with people as they age.
We've had a bit of a gamut of questions today, but what are the most common ones you get from people in the office?
Well, the number one reason is, why do I have hearing loss, or what kind of hearing loss do I have? Most of the time when people show up to our office, they already know there's something happening. They just want to know what it is and if we can do something about it. And the answer is always yes, there's something that can be done. We have recently brought on the ability to do cochlear implant evaluations, so we can help people determine if they are a candidate for a cochlear implant. And we are now also getting training to be able to turn those on. So you still have to find a surgeon, but you can actually come to our clinic and have that device activated, have all of your follow-up care done locally, so you don't have to travel to Boise or Salt Lake or Idaho Falls. You can get all of your cochlear implant help right here in our office.
Ultimately, too, we've reached a point where these things aren't quite as visible as they used to be.
Oh, no. I even have patients I know I fit with devices, and I'll see them in public and go, oh, is he wearing his hearing aid? And then I'll look, oh, yep, there it is. I didn't see it at first. They are very discreet.
And you'd know what to look for, where the average person on the street probably isn't looking for.
No, and if I can't tell, nobody else can either. The thing that I want people to know is hearing loss is very visible if you are misunderstanding people and responding incorrectly. That is very visible. People are worried about feeling old because they have a hearing aid. You look a lot older if you're saying the wrong thing or if you're responding inappropriately. That makes you look old, not a hearing aid.
We're also dealing with people, too, sometimes because of disease. I had a friend as a child, and he had very difficult time hearing because he'd had measles when he was just a baby. And when he recovered, his hearing was permanently damaged. And his speech, because of the way he's heard things over his life, his speech obviously isn't very good as well.
Right.
And so we've got to be alert about all of these things among the youngest people.
Absolutely, and that's why we are so why we care so much about infants. And it was a big investment for our practice, because we are just a small independent practice, to bring on the ABR testing, because there was a huge need in Mini-Cassia. If a child failed the hearing screening at the hospital, the only place they could go was here in Twin Falls, and there were too many children that were getting lost to follow-up because the family couldn't afford to go to Twin Falls, or they that was too much of a burden with a new baby. But now they have a safe place they can come right in Rupert, and we are more than happy to help those families.
How soon after a child is born should you have the hearing checked?
They have their hearing tested before they're discharged from the hospital.
Really?
So that is state law. Every baby born in Idaho should be screened for hearing loss before they leave. They're screened once, and if they pass, great. If they do what's called a refer, then they're retested one more time before they leave the hospital. If they refer that second time, then they are asked to have a follow-up test. And it's not what they do in the hospital is a screening. What we do in our office is a full diagnostic evaluation. So when that baby leaves our office, we'll know for sure if they have hearing loss, if they don't, what we need to do, what those next steps are.
And obviously, even with their children, they should come back periodically and have that hearing tested.
Well, and things change over time. If a child has had a series of ear infections that we can't seem to get cleared up by the doctor, they're at a high risk for hearing loss. We just fit a little boy a couple weeks ago who has had chronic ear infections. He has a huge gaping hole in one eardrum. He's got issues with the other ear, and he has permanent hearing loss because of all those ear infections. And his speech was affected. His all of his communication was very, very poor. Nobody could understand him. We fit him with hearing aids, and everybody is just thrilled. His whole family now, they understand what he's saying. He's happier because he's being understood, and it made such a difference for that family.
We got about 60 seconds. We probably won't get to everything here, but caller, very quickly, what's on your mind?
I just wondered, I needed to ask a question about something that happened to me. It was a very loud noise at my granddaughter's dance recital that hurt my ears, and now I've got this ringing in one ear. Could that be the cause?
Yes, it very much could be. Our inner ear doesn't have pain sensors. When something's wrong, our ears ring. And so that is very possible that something happened that caused some damage.
It could be temporary, but it could also be something that's permanent.
Yes, and so the sooner you get checked out, the better. We'd be more than willing to have you come in and check it, or just give our office a call.
What's the number for people?
208-312-0957. And if you go to our website, mountharrisonaudiology.com/radio, we have some new information for those that are joining us on the radio.
208-312-0957,
mountharrisonaudiology.com/radio.
But see, I think I've got that memorized because I may actually give that number out more than you do.
It's probably true.
We want to thank Dr. Christine Pickup. And again, if you have a comment or question for her off air, you can call the office
208-312-0957. Yep. Or our email info@mountharrisonaudiology.com.
We want to thank you. We'll see you again in about 4 weeks.
Yes, sir.
And do want to point out we're at 70 on our way probably into the mid-80s today. Rush Limbaugh's program is up next following the news on Magic Valley this morning is coming to an end. But we'll be back tomorrow, God willing, at the Creektown Rise between 6 and 10 a.m. In the meantime, 10 o'clock news from Fox as well.